In the drawing rooms of London, 300 years ago, there was a young man who ate his meat raw, heavily salted, dripping in front of astonished guests, because that, he told them, was how his people ate at home. His people lived on an island called Formosa, subject to the Emperor of Japan, and he was the first of them anyone in England had ever met. He had a language of his own, with its own alphabet, and the University of Oxford paid him to teach it. He had written a book about his homeland, a bestseller, and in its pages the priests of Formosa cut out the living hearts of 18,000 young boys every year and burned them on the altars of a god. A bishop of the Church of England believed him. The Royal Society questioned him and let him go. For years, the cleverest men in the country sat at his feet. Every word of it was invented. There was no island, no language, no religion, no boyhood in the East. He was a young man from somewhere in the south of France, and he made the rest up as he went. And here is the part that outlived him. When he finally confessed, he confessed to all of it, but one thing: his real name. He carried that to the grave, and nobody has ever found it. This is the story of the man we only know as George Psalmanazar. Start with what we do not know, because with this man that is most of it. We do not know where he was born, though he spoke with an accent that placed him somewhere in the south of France, in the country around Languedoc or Provence. We do not know the year, though it was around 1680. We do not know his name. Not then, not later, not now. What we can say is this: he was raised a Catholic, and he was clever with languages. Somewhere in his schooling, he learned good Latin, and he learned that a confident story, told in the right voice, opens doors that ought to stay shut. He put that to work as a young man on the roads of Europe. First, he became an Irish Catholic, a pilgrim walking to Rome. And to sell it, he carried a forged pilgrim's pass and a cloak he had stolen for the part. When the Irish story wore thin, he became something stranger. A convert out of Japan, a heathen who had seen the light, and when even Japan felt too close to places where real travelers had been, he reached for somewhere nobody could check. He became a native of Formosa, the island we now call Taiwan, a subject, he said, of the Emperor of Japan. He kept moving toward the edge of the map, because the edge of the map is where a lie is safest. Late in 1702, in the town of Sluys in Flanders, the young Formosan met the man who would make him famous. A Scottish army chaplain named Alexander Innes. Innes was not fooled. He was, in fact, the first educated man to see straight through the act. He set a simple trap. He asked the stranger to translate a passage into the Formosan language, and then, a while later, to translate the very same passage again. The two versions did not match. A real language does not change its spelling between Tuesday and Thursday. Innes had his proof. And then Innes did the thing that turned a small fraud into a large one. He did not expose him. He offered to join him. Together, he suggested, and to their mutual profit, they could take this act somewhere it would pay. The first step was a christening. Innes staged a public conversion and baptism. The heathen from the east received into the church, and he handed the young man a new name to be baptized under: George Psalmanazar, after an Assyrian king named Shalmaneser. It was the only name the man would ever admit to, and it was a fake. Innes was rewarded well for his part. He was appointed chaplain general to the English forces in Portugal. He had found a performing marvel, dressed it in scripture, and sent it on toward London ahead of him. Psalmanazar reached London in 1703, coming in by way of Rotterdam and landing on the Essex coast at Harwich near the end of the year. He arrived as a curiosity the whole city wanted to see. A genuine pagan from the far side of the world, converted to the true faith, standing there speaking a tongue no one could follow. He was brought before Henry Compton, the Bishop of London, one of the most powerful clergymen in England. And Psalmanazar knew exactly what a bishop wanted to hear. He came with a gift, a translation of the Church of England Catechism, rendered, he said, into the Formosan language. It was gibberish invented at his own desk, but it was flattering gibberish, and the bishop was charmed. Then came the harder room, the Royal Society, the great gathering of English science, the men of experiment and proof. They brought him in and questioned him. And this part matters because people often get it wrong. It was the Royal Society, the scientists, and not some society of geographers that examined him. Among the fellows in that room sat Edmund Halley, the astronomer. They asked their questions. He gave his answers. And for the moment, the cleverest men in the kingdom decided the young Formosan was exactly who he said he was. To understand how he held it together, look at how completely he lived the part. By the accounts of those who watched him, Psalmanazar ate his meat raw, heavily spiced, because that, he said, was the Formosan way. He slept sitting upright in a chair with a lamp burning all through the night. He kept his own calendar, out of step with everyone around him, and he prayed to the sun and the moon with rituals he had built out of nothing. The stranger the behavior, the more real it looked. Ordinary liars try to blend in. He did the opposite. He was odd in public, on purpose, every single day. And underneath the performance sat his masterpiece, a language. Not a few scattered words, but a working tongue, with its own grammar and its own alphabet, letters that ran in a direction of their own and looked like nothing in Europe. He could speak it, write it, and translate into it on demand. It was completely made up. There was no such language anywhere on Earth. But it was consistent enough and strange enough that scholars took it seriously. His invented alphabet was copied into printed tables of the world's writing systems, and it kept turning up in them for decades, long after the man himself had confessed. He had drawn letters for a country that did not exist, and the letters went on being reprinted as real. In 1704, he put the whole invention between two covers, an historical and geographical description of Formosa, an island subject to the Emperor of Japan. It was a hit, not a modest one. It sold through one English edition and then a second the following year, and after that it was carried into French and into German. London could not get enough of Formosa, and Formosa, remember, was a place he had built inside his own head. And what a place he built. In his Formosa, a man could take many wives, and a husband was allowed to kill and eat a wife who had betrayed him. The rich lived underground in round houses and started their mornings on the blood of vipers. The priests were cannibals who ate the bodies of the sacrificed. Then there was the number at the dark center of the book. Every year, he wrote, the priests of Formosa cut the living hearts out of 18,000 young boys and burned them in offering. In some editions, the figure was printed as 20,000 boys under 9 years of age. Either way, he had sat at a desk in England and calmly counted out a slaughter of children by the tens of thousands, and his readers turned the page and asked for more. Not everyone swallowed it. And the sharpest doubt came from that same room at the Royal Society, from Edmund Halley. Halley thought like an astronomer, and he laid a trap made of sunlight. Formosa, if it sat where Psalmanazar placed it, lay deep in the tropics. So tell me, Halley asked, in your country, does the sun not shine straight down the chimneys at midday? A true Formosan would know. A fraud would be caught out by the physics of it. Psalmanazar did not blink. Formosan chimneys, he explained, are not built straight. They wind and twist like a corkscrew, so the sunlight never reaches the bottom. And his own pale European skin, so unlike a man of the tropics. Well, the better families of Formosa lived underground, out of the sun. He had an answer for everything, and he gave it without a pause. There were people who genuinely knew better. Jesuit missionaries who had truly been to the East contradicted him. Among them, a priest named Fontenay, who challenged him at a meeting of the Royal Society. But England in those years distrusted Jesuits more than it distrusted a charming young convert, and so the men with real knowledge were waved aside. And the con reached its high point. The University of Oxford invited him in. For about 6 months he lodged in rooms at Christ Church and taught his invented language to gentlemen who meant to sail east and convert the Formosans at his side. A performance like that cannot run forever. It needs its author to defend it every day, on every point without ever tiring, and no man can do that for a lifetime. From around 1706, the defense began to weaken. The answers came slower. The contradictions piled up faster than he could sweep them away. And in the end, it was not a rival who brought Formosa down. It was Psalmanazar himself. Quietly, first to his friends and then more openly, he began to admit that the whole thing was invented. The city that had adored him now had a joke to tell. When the very first issue of The Spectator appeared in the spring of 1711, he was already good material for satire. Years later, when Jonathan Swift wrote his savage little pamphlet about eating Irish children, A Modest Proposal, he reached for the most famous cannibal in England and named Psalmanazar outright. The Formosan was finished. The island folded back into nothing, the language went quiet, the raw meat and the sun worship became an old story people half remembered. By any ordinary ending, this is where the man should have vanished too, ruined and mocked into whatever gutter takes a fallen fraud. That is not what happened to him. Not even close. Around 1728, a serious illness nearly killed him, and it seems to have changed him for good. Reading a devotional book by William Law, A Serious Call, he turned to religion in earnest, and he never turned back. The former Formosan settled into a quiet, unglamorous trade. He became a Grub Street writer, one of the anonymous hands who did the heavy lifting behind the great reference books of the age. He wrote parts of a complete system of geography and parts of a universal history, honest, patient work, under other men's names. When he wrote about Formosa now, he wrote about it truthfully, and he condemned his own earlier fraud in plain words. By some reports, he leaned hard on laudanum through these years, yet the man himself was known for his humility and his hard work, and he made an extraordinary friend. Samuel Johnson, the towering figure of English letters, sought him out and sat with him in a plain alehouse off Old Street and came to revere him. Johnson told Mrs. Thrale that Psalmanazar was the best man he had ever known. He would not argue with him on anything. I should as soon think of contradicting a bishop. The man who had once lied to a bishop, a university, and the Royal Society was now, to the greatest moralist of the age, something close to a living saint. George Psalmanazar died on the 3rd of May, 1763, in lodgings on Ironmonger Row, off Old Street in London. He gave his age as about 84, though even that was only his own word, and by then nobody was checking. He had left instructions. A year after his death in 1764, a book appeared that he had written in his final years and ordered printed only once he was safely gone. His confession. In it, he laid out the whole machine of the Formosa fraud, how he had done it, and why, sparing himself nothing. On the title page, where the author's name belongs, there are 4 small stars and then nothing at all. Memoirs of and a blank, commonly known by the name of George Psalmanazar, a reputed native of Formosa. Look at what he confessed and what he kept. He gave up Formosa. He gave up the language, the religion, the raw meat, the boys' hearts on the altar, the island, the whole of it. He handed the world every secret he owned but one. His name. He never wrote it, never spoke it, never let it slip in half a century of friendships. Whoever the boy from the south of France had once been, that boy died with him, unnamed. So here is the file. On a man with no birthplace we can prove, no birth year we can fix, and no name at all. Known as an Irish pilgrim, known as a convert from Japan, known to a bishop, a university, the Royal Society, and the finest writer in England as George Psalmanazar, a native of Formosa, and known, truly, to no one. Case closed.